The expectation is when Daniel's healthy that he will be our starting quarterback.
Big Dash knows what?
So fresh out of the Joe Schoen presser, the bye week presser, and I was actually surprised to see that Joe Schoen, had scheduled this presser so earlier in the week. I expected it to be around Wednesday, but Monday, ta-da, is here. We got to see what he was talking about. We got to see what his mindset was. And if you guys know me, you guys know the notebook came out. Got a lot of notes about what he was talking about, what he addressed, what he didn't want to talk about. And this video is going to be my reaction to the presser. And first off, obviously the number one thing is going to be about Daniel Jones. And they asked him about Daniel Jones and what's going on with Daniel Jones. And they try to ask him about what his plans are as far as a first round quarterback possibly being drafted. And like I said, he moonwalked, kind of shuffled out of those questions. But he did say this, though. When it comes to that quarterback room, he said that the quarterback room had to be addressed. He said, with Tyrod Taylor not having a contract in 2024, with the timeline for Daniel Jones' recovery not set in stone, something has to be addressed with the quarterback room. The room has to be addressed. Now, again, you're not going to get exactly what you want to hear. He's not going to tell you that, yeah, we're drafting a quarterback round one. You're not going to get a professional to say something like that. Even if he was going to do it, you don't give away, your draft advantage, your strategies. You don't give away your strategies for the draft. Nobody ever does. Nobody ever does, especially when you're not picking number one. You don't want to give up those draft strategies, and even people that do pick number one usually don't give up their draft strategies. So I didn't expect, an answer or a solid answer from Joe Schoen saying that we're going to address the quarterback round one. But he did say if the best player available, he said we're going to take the best player available, and you guys can read between the lines when it comes to that, depending on how you feel about the situation. If you're pro Daniel Jones, you're going to feel one way about that statement. If you're not a Daniel Jones fan, you're going to feel another way about that statement. So that was something that he addressed, talked about it a little bit, and said basically that, that he still believes once Daniel Jones comes back, he's going to be the starter for the New York Giants. And I was looking at the chat when he said that, and the chat for that YouTube video was going crazy when he made that statement. And here's the thing, what do you expect that man to say? And also when you're really thinking about it logically, even if you draft a quarterback in round one, you still have issues to fix on the offensive line. And then you look at the contract that Daniel Jones has, which is a 2-year contract. If the play doesn't match up, he can be gone after the second year. I don't see a reason why Daniel Jones wouldn't be the starter. You're going to throw him out there to try to prove himself because he already has the contract. And if he turns out not being who a lot of people already don't think he is, then you have the rookie waiting to be thrown in there. And I believe that's the perfect way to do it. Normally you want your young quarterbacks to develop. Sometimes you throw them to the wolves. Sometimes you wait if you can afford it, or if the team is good enough to make wins without you putting that quarterback in. Of course, you want these guys to develop. And, with Daniel Jones coming off of the injury, now had he just played bad and played the whole season, then that's another story. But with him, being injured, of course, you're going to give this man a chance to get his job back, or I can see why he will be the starter once he comes back from injury. But that doesn't, pretty much dictate that he'll be the starter throughout the whole 2024 season unless he just plays well enough to hold off that rookie. So that was one of the things about Daniel Jones that he did address slightly. Also, what he said about the quarterback room. They asked him about Saquon Barkley. They asked him about Xavier McKinney and their contract. He refused. He was not going to fall for the bait. He does not want to talk about any UFAs. That's what he said. He doesn't want to talk about any guys that might have future contracts for the New York Giants. He didn't want to address it at all. A little bit later in the that's how he opened up. And then a little bit later in the presser, they tried to ask it a little more, I guess, in a sneaky way about Saquon Barkley and stuff like that. And he said he would not address the UFA. In Saquon Barkley or Xavier McKinney, what their contracts might be. So I respect that. And again, that's him talking to the media. Who knows what he's really going to say? I mean, who knows what he's really going to do? They might have a deal, waiting for Xavier McKinney drawing up on a bye week, and we might hear some breaking news, this week or maybe next week, before the next game. But that's just something that he was asked, and that's what he wanted to say. He wanted to keep that information under wraps. He didn't want to address any kind of contract information going into 2024. He did address Evan Neal, and he probably the most open and honest about Evan Neal. He said Evan Neal has to play better, and he also said that Evan Neal knows that himself. He knows he needs to play better. So, I mean, of course, he didn't address the quarterback the way people wanted him to. He didn't address the Saquon Barkley contract or McKinney contract the way people wanted him to. But when it came to Evan Neal, with all the information that is clear, he was straight and to the point when it came to Evan Neal and said Evan Neal absolutely has to play better. And he also said that Evan Neal knows that. And it is what it is. Like, a lot of people have been saying that. A lot of people agree with him that Evan Neal has to play better. Right now, you can argue that he's looking like a bust. He's looking like a guy that you might have to move inside the guard, possibly, if he can even survive there. And the only reason why people think that is because of Eric Flowers. When Eric Flowers failed as a tackle here, we saw another team move in the guard, and he was able to solve his career to a certain extent. And I think with that happening, and with some kind of, a little bit of optimism, I think people believe that if he cannot make it as the right tackle for the New York Giants, let's go ahead and try to kick him inside before we get rid of him and see what we have with that. And I mean, I'm with that. I'm one of the people that say we should kick him inside. I don't want to wait to kick him inside. But if there's going to be some changes, if you're going to change the blocking scheme, if you're going to change the offensive line coach, like a lot of people want that to happen, then of course you give Evan Neal, another chance at right tackle to see if he can survive under a new scheme or under a new coach, and then you move him inside if it's proven that he can't hold up at tackle. So let me check the rest of my notes here. I don't want to miss anything that was said. Yeah, he also talked about the construction of the team as far as how he addressed free agency, how he addressed filling some of the roster spots. He was happy with the way he filled the roster spot. He didn't regret the Darren Waller trade. He didn't regret signing guys that are weapons, wide receiver weapons for Saquon Barkley. I'm assuming he's talking about re-signing Slayton and signing Paris Campbell, which I was a big fan of the signing of Paris Campbell, because him coming back off an injury and what he did with the Colts gave you a little bit of promise, especially with the deal that we gave him. It wasn't an expensive deal, incentive lace deal, to see if this guy can actually do something. It was a cheaper option, and see if it worked out. We see that it didn't work out, at least at this point in time. At the bye week, it didn't work out, and again, it didn't cost you a lot of money. He talked about Bobby Okereke and how that was a great signing, and how he added so much, or he's adding so much to this team, especially on the defensive side. And he did also address, since we're talking about the defense, he did address the rumor from yesterday. They did talk about the Jay Glazer comments about them being some turmoil between Dable and Wink Martindale. He pretty much swept that under the rug. Not even swept it under the rug. He pretty much said that Dable already addressed that there is no issue, or he does not know of any issue between Brian Dable and Wink Martindale. And I did put out a tweet yesterday, and I was saying, what if they planted that story to smoke out another source that's in the building? We saw it last year when they smoked out that source, and the guy ended up getting fired. And now who knows if they fed some information to somebody to try to see exactly who the new leak was, as far as a source for some of these reporters, beat writers, and media personalities. And if we hear about a firing or anything like that, it could be that, it was a whole setup, and they put out some smoke in order to get somebody out of there that was telling their information. And, you hate to have people telling information. And when it comes to Jay Glazer is probably one of the top guys in breaking information. And when I saw that he was reporting something like that, it kind of scared me, because I'm like, okay, if Jay Glazer is saying it, then it has to be real. And then I thought about it, again, okay, yes, his source might be true, because Glazer has some of the best sources. But if they planted a story And just to see, if it gets back to anybody, I think it works if that is the plan. If that's in fact the plan, is that's ingenious and that's playing chess, not checkers. If the story happens to be true, it's unfortunate because I believe that Wink Martindale is probably one of the stronger coaches on the staff, the strongest coach on the staff, and that's me including Brian Dable at this point too. I think the defense is the shining star of this entire organization right now, and losing Wink Martindale would be unfortunate. But I believe that Wink Martindale is going to be here and going to be steady and be the DC, as long as Brian Dable is here for sure. So I'm just going to go through my notes again. It wasn't the longest. It wasn't the longest presser. I believe it was only like maybe 20 minutes. But he, like I said, he answered a lot of questions that people might have. And for a lot of people like me, a lot of fans like me that were just trying to see what the temperature in the room, I like to say temperature in the room, where like to see where Joe Schoen's mind or head was at in this situation. He's not. He didn't seem happy. I'll say that he wasn't happy with the results of this season. He is busy. He is out there on the road scouting like crazy. He did address that this year he is way further along in the scouting process. We already know that he's had trips. He's seen all the top quarterback talent. He did say that he's been around. He wouldn't admit it directly when they asked him if he was scouting these quarterbacks closely, but you see his schedule. We see the games that he went to. He's out here looking at these quarterbacks for sure. Now there's other guys on these teams that we're looking at. There's a lot of holes for the New York Giants, but we already know he's making his rounds and he's looking at all of these quarterbacks, and hopefully he's doing his due diligence, him and the scouting team, to see where they are as far as draft position. We don't know that yet. Right now I believe we're 6. We have a top 6 pick, and you're probably not going to get those top 2 guys in the top 6. But there's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft, depending on who declares and who stays. You could see 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10. I know it sounds crazy, but we know the way that we hype up these quarterbacks. And by the time we get to this draft, you can see possibly, 4 quarterbacks in the top 10, maybe 6 quarterbacks in the first round, depending on, like I said, who declares or not. If you're a fan of mine, or if you watch me, you know that Shedeur Sanders is high on my list. We don't know if he's going to declare yet. But if he does declare, you can put him in as a guy that's going to be borderline first round. For me, I think he's the 3rd best quarterback in the draft if he declares. But again, we don't know how everybody else feels about him. You got guys like McCarthy, Penix, you got Bo Nix too. It's a lot of guys. It's a lot of quality quarterbacks out there, but don't get it confused. Those top 2 guys are the top 2 guys for a reason, for an absolute reason. But yeah, that was just my quick reaction on the Joe Schoen presser. Answered a lot of questions, avoided some questions, and a lot of stuff you guys can fill in the blanks. So go ahead and watch that presser. Let me know what you guys think. Go ahead and come back to this video. Put your comments down below about what you feel or how you feel about Joe Schoen answering and avoiding some of these questions. And yeah, we can vibe out. We can vibe out in the comment section for sure. But I want to thank everybody for vibing with me. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And from one Giants fan to another, this is Big Dash Knows, Big Blue Nation. Let's go.